Hello, good morning. This is Manfred Liechti speaking to you. I'm in my office and it's exactly 3:15 in the morning, Saturday morning. I have just processed 2 orders of my Sublime Blue blockers glasses so that they can be shipped tomorrow morning to the recipient, the buyer. Earlier today I was giving my entrepreneurship course the last touches. I was working on the chapter of leveraged buyouts. It's my favorite chapter because I really like the theory, and there I got carried away. I was dwelling in all Wall Street stories like the world famous management buyout led by Ross Johnson of RJR Nabisco in 1988 when he was fighting the private equity and buyout pioneers Henry Kravis and George Roberts, the 2 founding members of the private equity firm KKR. So every day these days we get negative news from Covud, which meanwhile has taken 300,000 lives globally. And I was thinking today I want to record for you a message that contains some positive views. So I was thinking to myself, who are actually the winners of the COVID crisis? Because whenever you have a loser somewhere, there must be a winner somewhere. And there indeed are winners. So what were good investments, what were good companies that actually benefit from the COVID crisis? First we have the commodity gold. Gold has hit the 7-year high, so gold shares or the investors in gold must be quite happy right now. It's the typical flight to quality we see when crisis hits, people buy gold. Then looking at some company, we have logistics and delivery companies such as Alibaba, Foodpanda, Deliveroo, and all the food delivery companies benefiting from increased online food orders. Pharmaceuticals, Gilead, the Nasdaq listed company which owns the rights to the treatment drug Remdesivir, I think it's called. Moderna, another company who say they are actively working on a vaccine. The Swiss giant Roche, a major supplier of testing kits, and the Fujifilm Dionyth Biotech, a world-leading CDMO with existing treatment drug Avigan. Furthermore, video conferencing. This is an amazing story. Have you heard of Zoom? Zoom is a technology we use to create virtual classrooms, etc. Zoom is booming right now. It's a startup company actually. Imagine you have a startup company in video conferencing and then the corona crisis hit. This is like Christmas and birthday and New Year's and lottery win and everything together. Fantastic timing for the guys at Zoom. Then further companies in the video conferencing sector that benefit is Cisco's WebEx and the Xbox One console. Then there's the entertainment, streaming and gaming industry with Netflix, Amazon Prime and Disney Plus. All those companies report highly increased viewership since the crisis. Online gaming platforms also experience record volumes right now. So obviously where there are winners, there must be losers. Big losers are the transportation industry, airlines, train companies and cruise ships. I have read that the global airline industry requires $200 billion of emergency funding to be able to stem that crisis. Virgin Atlantic intends to park up to 85% of its fleet, and the cruise ship operator Norwegian has cut off 85% of its routes and laid off 90% of its staff. The oil industry obviously isn't having a party since the oil price dropped so much. It's the first demand drop since 2009 in the oil industry. Investment banking is also on the losing side. The US Bank, JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America and Citigroup are all more than 30% from their highs in January. Investment banking fees are expected to drop more than 50% in the first half of 2020, which would mean around an 11 billion in lost revenues. It's the worst year in investment banking since 2009, since the financial crisis. Another losing sector is traditional retail. if people are locked down at home, there is not much point of having a retail store open, right? So we see a lot of retail stores close. We see entire retail malls are closing, and the assumption is that besides grocery shops and pharmacies, it will take a very long time for the traditional retailers to recover from this crisis. The manufacturing sector is down. GM, Ford and Tesla are talking about producing ventilators instead of cars. And I like this one. LVMH, the French luxury company behind Louis Vuitton, Christian Dior and Givenchy, is shifting to produce hand sanitizers. LVMH is giving the product to the French authorities to distribute to hospitals at no charge. That's a noble move of LVMH. We should see more of those. The education sector is certainly beaten. Most schools and universities have closed their doors, but not necessarily their operations. Many education content providers are moving online, which is a business that is actually booming. Online education is booming during the COVID crisis. Earlier today, when I was working on my course, I was interrupted by a headline. I saw a headline that the Singapore government is putting up another $3.6 billion of stimulus. So I was looking at this headline and I was asking myself, what does that tell me? Is this a lot or is this not a lot? Where does this sort of fit in, 3.6 billion in the bigger picture? And I started to do some research. So the assumption is that the whole COVID crisis cost us $6 trillion so far. But that is a completely abstract number to me, certainly to most of you too. $6 trillion. What if I tell you that the average accountant in the US would have to work 120 million years to make this money? That's equally abstract. So we need to find something we can process, something we can imagine, something we have a relation to. So I tried to find a common denominator and had a look at different governments and their stimulus packages. So Singapore is at $42 billion now, which is unprecedented. It's a huge bailout package, if you want, for the economy. Switzerland with $60 billion is unheard of. That's about $7,000 per capita. So per capita is a common denominator where we can look at these things. In the case of Singapore, the stimulus is about $7,450 per capita. In the case of Switzerland, it's about $7,000 per capita, which is in the Swiss case 8.45% of the GDP per capita. In Singapore's case, it's 13.3% of the GDP per capita, which is quite a large number. Then in Germany, the fund to support the economy, stimulus fund, is 600 billion euros, which is about 7,227 euros per capita, again around this $7,000 mark. I think this is quite a good number to keep in mind, $7,000 per capita. In the German case, that's 15.2% of GDP per capita. It's a huge number. In the UK, the numbers are a bit lower, £65.5 billion, the stimulus package, which is about $1,200 per capita, 2.8% of GDP per capita. Then the US we're talking about $3 trillion. That's about $9,100 per capita and about 14.55% of GDP per capita, again a huge number. In the US, we talked about unemployment when I talked about that broker call a couple of days ago. Unemployment has come in and the official unemployment rate of the US is now 14.75%. However, the Fed is warning that the jobless number, unemployment number, could rise to 47 million in the US, which would mean unemployment rate of 32%. These are certainly unprecedented numbers and would mean nothing good for securities markets. Japan, the bailout package is about $1 trillion, which is again $7,900 per capita, or a staggering 20.2% of GDP per capita. That is a massive number. 20% of GDP, roughly, is the Japanese stimulus. And The last one I looked at was Malaysia with $59.6 billion. It's quite a heavy sum too. It's about $2,000 per capita, 16. But then here we have to be careful. I mean, it's only roughly $2,000 per capita, but 16.97% of GDP per capita. The reason why it's so high percentage GDP per capita is because Malaysia doesn't really have a very high GDP per capita. It's probably around $11,000, the GDP per capita. Comparing that to the world's leading economies like Singapore, Switzerland, where the GDP per capita is somewhere around 65,000-70,000 per capita. Okay, so I thought this provides a bit of data in a sense that we can grasp it, that we can imagine something. Because if you tell me a government dishes out $7,000 per person in its economy, I can imagine that. But if you tell me a government just prints $60 billion, that's, again, this is a very huge number, and 60 billion, this is a 6 with 10 zeros. Yeah, this is a massive number and it looks very abstract. It's not a concept we can grasp easily. Alright, so there are a few more winners to this COVID crisis, which is basically all of us. Because there's one positive aspect that benefits us all, and that's our climate. The lockdown in so many countries had a similar effect than if we would take 40 million cars off the road. So the climate has actually improved, which is for the benefit of all of us. And on that cheerful note, I say good night for today. It's 3:20 now in the morning. I go and sleep now. Thank you for watching today. Thank you for listening, and I talk to you very soon. Good night and bye bye everyone.